Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing something fun for me, hopefully you. So, as you know, there has been the pastel colored pencil obsession. And what I mean when I say pastel is not like chalk pastel, but pastel colors. Everyone wants pastel colored pencils. So it started with one brand and it exploded from there. And so I am today going to tell you my two favorite brands for the pastel colored pencils, but unfortunately, I can't recommend them. This seems to be a habit, but I'll explain why when we get into the video. So get ready to look at everything from the ones that call themselves macaron to the ones that just call themselves pastels. I have mine in a variety of different brands, and I also have brands that I have gotten rid of over the years, and so I no longer have them. But we're going to talk about all the brands I've tried, I still have, and then the top two I recommend, but can't recommend because, well, there's reasons, and the runner-up that I can recommend as a, I guess, reasonable substitute. So, let's get going. All right, today we are here to talk about pastel colored pencils, and I have a lot of them. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go over all of the sets I've ever used, and you're in luck because I have one coloring book that I am only coloring in pastel colors. If you've followed my channel, you've probably seen me break this book out. But I've been doing nothing but pastel colors in this using pastel sets of pencils. So I can kind of give you an idea of how things look when they're colored. A few others that I didn't even get to coloring with because they were that crappy. And then of course, my two favorite that I can't even recommend, and it's very frustrating. So let's just start from the beginning. Now, everything is linked in the description below, and if you were to search on Amazon for pastel colored pencils, you will notice there's even more than what I have here. Every brand has come out with their own pastel set. It's like borderline ridiculous at this point. But we are going to start off with the Arteza. Now, these are the Arteza Classic. It gets very confusing because Arteza has been releasing the Classic, the Expert. I think they have Professional too. I don't know. But this is their 50 pastel set. They come in this little box here. They're triangular shaped, so they kind of give you like those Ergo soft vibes. So it's interesting packaging. It's actually not the best packaging. I guess I should show you a pencil too, right? Because we're doing a full comparison, or sort of. It's more of a quick one. So there are no names on these, but they do have the numbers. And then this is the palette you get. It's pretty, right? I mean, here's the thing. I'm going to tell you right now, you can only get so many pastel colors. So there's a lot of overlap. But that said, here is the palette. Now these were, considering pastel pencils have a lot of white in them, they're typically soft, or should be pretty soft. I mean, it's hard. It takes talent to make a scratchy pastel pencil because of all that white. That said, Arteza somehow mastered that because these were scratchy. Scratchy to the point that, look, they wouldn't even color in on my smooth cardstock. So that was kind of disappointing, but they are super budget friendly, so I guess there's that. Then we have Astra Pastelowe. These were kind of like really big for a little while. You know, you had to order them from this site, I think it was Poland. It was a big thing because these were like called the Holbein dupe. Like you could buy these, which were super, super cheap. And I have a review and tons of videos on these, so check that out. Because this is not a full review. This is just going over the various brands and my recommendations. So This was like the Holbein dupe. So what I did is I created a chart here, and I do have this on my Ko-fi if you want to check it out. But I actually have on top is the Pastelowe color, and on the bottom is the Holbein. And then basically what I did is I just used the numbers and names from Holbein because these were called Holbein dupes. Well, when it comes to the color palette, they were really, really close. In fact, it was just when we got to a couple greens that we were a little bit off, and maybe a little bit off with this pink. But other than that, they really did mimic Holbein's, because see, this is the Pastelowe Holbein. That said, the Holbein was still softer, and for those of you who have watched my channel long enough, you know I don't like Holbein, so if I, compliment Holbein, that's saying something. But I have used them to color. All right, like I said, this book is only being done in pastel colors, so these were the Pastelowes. They were okay, but I had a lot of scratchiness with these pencils. I'm not going to lie, it got really obnoxious by the end in comparison to like a Holbein. That said, there are so many other ones now available and easier to get that most people don't even use the Pastellows. But there were 50 of them, and it was fun to play around with them. Next, we have the Brutfuner Macaron. This is the one where it was like, hey, are we really trying to be like Holbein? Because if you own Holbeins, does this look familiar? Yeah, they weren't hiding that one whatsoever. They totally mimicked the style, so they have like the colored barrel, color dipped in, even the gold. They do have the name and numbers, whereas like the Pastelows have nothing written on them, so that was quite the adventure. They were okay overall. And of course, I'm filming, so why not? The jets are gonna fly on by. So here you have the Macaron 50 pastel pencils. They really were pretty smooth. However, if you look at this palette in comparison to like the other pastel sets, it's not as pastel. We've got quite some like bold colors, and this is just play on neon right there. So these are a little bit darker than your other pastel sets. So I found that kind of interesting when you think about it, because look at how dark those are. Just for comparison purposes, you can see, looking at these palettes here, see, it's just a little bit darker. Granted, the boxes are bigger, so I know it can come off that way, and we do have a lot of ones that match up with one another. See, like you got the mustard, even their like smalt blue matches the Holbein and Astra Pastelowe smalt blue. So basically, if you have Astra or you have Holbein, if you have Holbein's pastel set, you really don't need to buy anything else. But if you want to wing it on a budget set, you're going to duplicate with these two brands here. Now, when it comes to Arteza, theirs were a lot lighter, but like I said, they were a lot scratchier. And as you can see here, we've got like tons of yellows in there. So just keep that in mind. Brutfuner, Macaron, and the Astra, Pastelowe, and Holbein are pretty much the same set of 50 colors. The only thing is with the Brutfuner, Macaron, they were okay to color with. They weren't necessarily my favorite. They blended okay. This is a smoother paper, this Hannah Carlson book, but I mean, they weren't too shabby. That said, I honestly found them smooth overall. It's just you would get scratchy pieces here and there, but that's because it is a budget pencil. Now let's talk about one of the worst sets I have ever experienced in my life. That would be Shuttle Art's 60 pastel pencils. I was like, ooh, all right, 60. We're upping it from the usual, 30s and 50s. But these were horrible. They were so scratchy. I didn't color with them. In fact, I threw them all in here. And again, they're pulling off the same look. They're trying to do the Holbein vibe. So they got the names, but at least they were nice enough to not copy the names. It was kind of funny though, because everything is pastel, but hey, they keep it clear. These are actually being donated to my neighbors. I do not recommend them whatsoever. They are like one of the worst pencils I've ever swatched from pastels. And like I said, because there's so much white in a pastel set, they should be smooth. And if you think about it, this has a really pretty color palette, lots of colors to play with, but the problem is they're very unpleasant. I have had other people comment that they've had a great experience, so maybe I got a bad batch, but I wasn't about to waste my money and try again. Now we have Kalour, macaron, whatever. Again, we are going with the whole naming convention. There is a little bit of overlap with Holbein, but not in the same extent as Brutfuner did or Astra Pastelowe. So this is the Kalour set. Again, you're going to see a lot of overlap from the Holbein, Astra, and Brutfuner, because we've got 50 here. Again, their mustard, this mustard. Their wisteria is a little bit lighter than this wisteria, but overall you can see there's going to be some overlap again. Their coral, this coral. So they did have a few names that were similar. Their fuchsia is a little bit more purple leaning than these pink ones. But yeah, you do have a lot of overlap. So if you were to buy the Kalours and you already had Astra or you had the Brutfuners, you're going to get a few that are just a couple shades different, but for the most part, you are going to overlap. So you need to kind of keep that in mind if it's even worth spending your money on it. Now, these are really cheap. Again, they wanted to go for that whole look. Let's get one that's easier to read. So they look just like the Brutfuners. They have the name, a light fast rating, which I find is hilarious, color dipped end. Now, there's a lot of people who, you know, because they are manufactured and white labeled these days with these budget brands, say that they're the exact same pencil. They're possibly, however, I noticed one, like I said, the color output was different. So there are some differences, and I didn't feel like they laid down the same. That's me. I'm heavy-handed, though. I felt they laid down differently than each other, and especially because while there are some colors that overlap, because again, you can only make so many pastel colors, they do have different shades going on for quite a few of theirs, like even their lilac is a little bit lighter than the lilac from Brutfuner. That said, I mean, let's see, how does it match up to here? See, it's lighter than this one as well. So yeah, I mean, I noticed a different laydown, and I can also show you how it looks colored. Okay, so I didn't like use a ton of colors. I mean, when you're coloring with pastels, you got to get crafty. But I've got like pinks and purples and blues, and then I was using all the greens, and I found them okay. They were pleasant to use. It's kind of, you know, I wouldn't, like I said, the laydown isn't the same as the Brutfuners to me, but I'll have to do a more thorough side-by-side comparison later on and let you know, because that is one of my to-do lists for videos. But color palette is really close, so if you already have one or the other, you're not saving yourself any hassle. Don't buy both. Like, I mean, you're not getting much of a difference here. Okay, so now we are on to the pencil I actually really, really like, but can't recommend, or one of them. Meet my friend Indra Creative. These did say limited edition, so in all fairness, they warned us a long time ago. This is the 72 count. It was their macaroon set, as they called them, and they are glorious for so many reasons. One, I mean, look at that. That is like eye candy right there. But two, black barrels or black wood. Oh my gosh. I could never get over that because the contrast of the pastel color against that black wood, it is a square, but these fit in like everything because it's not a big square like a Brutfuner square. So it goes in my AF mat, it fits in my doll. But these are not only pretty to the eye, these are absolutely amazing to use. I had started with a 36 count set, loved it. So when they came out with the 72, I grabbed it. Then they started like, you know, not having them around. So I grabbed a spare 32 count set. I could never get another spare 72 count set. So that was a bummer, but 72 pastel colors. Now, I do have videos on these, all of these on my channel. Like I said, we're just talking about my top. So that said, you know, it's like I was saying, you can only make so many pastel colors. The biggest we've seen so far is 50. However, this is the biggest one at a lovely 72. That said, lots of overlap. I mean, a lot of these are really close to one another, right? You can only make so many pastel colors. That said, these were smooth to use like you would expect because of all the white. The color range is beautiful. The pencil is freaking eye candy galore. I mean, look at that. Look at that. It is tragic that they don't make these anymore. I don't know why they don't. I have tried and watched, and they don't. So that is why I can't recommend them. Simply can't get them. However, they are absolutely amazing to work with on smooth paper. They do so well, no scratchies whatsoever, and these are hella cheap, you guys, like super budget friendly, or were. Can't get them now, but look at that, just absolutely beautiful. And I had started a page here with them, and you can just make so much fun blends. So yeah, these are one of my top 2. I just can't recommend them because you can't get them. So I have my set that's in my case. I have this 72 count set, and then I have that spare one. And those are by far my favorite. They would be number 1 if they were still available. And then they would be ones I say, yes, go buy these. Because out of every brand I have tried, these are the ones I would recommend. You just can't get them. So what is the other one that I would recommend, or that's my favorite, but I can't recommend? Well, here you go. Say hello to my little friend known as the Shuttle Art Pastel Tint Colored Pencils. Now, I know what you're thinking. Gosh, those look a lot like Kalour or Brutfuner and all that. These do not lay down like those whatsoever. Is there cover or color overlap? Yes, but again, you're going to have that with every brand. So, that said, I really like the pastel tints, but it's their price. I have a full review on my channel of these. You can go check it out. Their price is why I cannot recommend them. Otherwise, I love using them. I love the way they lay down. I actually like their color palette. It does have a little bit of variation from the same old same. If you pull out your 50 Kalours versus 48, by the way. I love the fact that their blues just, I don't know, something about their blues is what draws me in. They do have a lot more neutral tones up in here, but these colors are gorgeous. And like I said, you will have some overlap. At least they were kind enough to not copy names like Holbein. Oh my gosh, the Jets. I'm sorry. I'm sure I'll get a few comments below. I cannot control the Jets. They fly when they want. So as you can see here, they have really cute names. Tickle Pink. But it's pretty close to Fuchsia. Camellia is really close to, I would say, their Sakura. So like, you know, we're going to have some overlap there. But if I had to pick between these two, I would still pick this one because I find the laydown, the blending, and everything a lot better. Sure, I get 2 more pencils in this set, but I've had no issues using this set whatsoever. So the only reason I can't recommend the pastel tint is simply the price. Shuttle Art has raised their prices significantly over the last few months, and it's just getting worse and worse. So I had started this page with the pastel tints. Look, you can even do skin tone. She's not done. She had her first layer. And then I did this full double page spread here with the pastel tints. And again, these were wonderful to use. I really had some fun with the colors. And see, look, this is the palette, but you can do a ton with it. The background is not pencil, by the way. No, it is pencil. I forgot. That's right. I did do it with pencil. I was crazy that day. I was looking at it and I'm like, that looks like pencil that blended out. But yeah, here's your palette, but you can do so much with it. It's just the price. The price. So that is why I can't recommend them. But I'm going to leave you with one final note. So my top two that I absolutely love but cannot recommend are the Indra, because you cannot get them, and the Shuttle Art, because they cost too much. That said, if you were fine with the price, I highly recommend taking your pastel tint and purchasing the 72 Harmonious pencils, and you have a completely muted, fun palette to work with. You've got enough pastel shades to help with some of these darker colors, because these are more of a gray, muted color palette. And I'm actually working on combining these two sets. I would recommend doing that for a very unique pencil palette. So you're not going to find these same colors, by the way, in the other Shuttle Art pencils. You'll have some that are similar or close-ish. They do not lay down like these ones, though. These are very, very smooth and lovely to use. It's the same thing with the Harmonious. I love them. I just can't recommend them for the price. But if you're okay paying for it, grab both and combine them. And stay tuned for my video where I do combine them into one big glorious set. So if we have all these pencils, what would I recommend? Because my top two favorites you can't buy. Since you can't buy my favorites, I recommend the Kalour, simply because they have a price point. It's a popular brand right now as of the time I'm filming this. If you watch this 5 years in the future, probably not. But the reason I pick them over everyone else, including Brutfuner, is because Brutfuner is hit or miss. A lot of their pencils go missing on Amazon. So Kalour has been a lot more consistent. Kalour also has 520 sets, so you can go crazy like that. But if you're just looking for the pastel sets, I would recommend going with these Kalours. Second would be the Brutfuners. Just know that I don't know if they'll be around in a few months, but same thing with this. Who knows? These are those budget brands that aren't very reliable in the first place. Another option is to take what you already have, because you already have a pastel set in your collection. If you happen to own Prismacolors, you can swatch them on Tantone paper to help you find the pastel colors, but you will be able to pull your own set of pastel pencils just from Prisma. You can do the same with Crayola, Black Widow. You can even do it with your regular Kalours. Any set of pencils is already going to have pastel colors. Now, the smaller the set, the fewer the pastels. Arctics, not as much. They went really bold. They do have some pastels, but you're not pulling a full pastel set. Now, will Arctics release a pastel set? They haven't yet, which is kind of surprising because everyone else has jumped on the pastel boat. But who knows, if they did, that would totally complement this set, because that was one of my complaints, is where are the pastels? So most pencil sets you own already have pastel colors. You just have to be able to pull them out and only use those ones. I am going to do a video because someone requested that I take my Prismacolor and create a whole pastel palette similar to like this and tell you what the set would be. Oh my gosh, the jets. Again, I am sorry. So I do plan to do that, but that's my recommendation. If you want to just go buy a strictly pastel set, either of these are fine. I would go with Kalour first, though, in my opinion, or just use what you have. That said, I would much rather, any day of the week, use these ones. I just can't recommend them. Isn't that tragic? I'd love to know what pastel colored pencils you use. Oh, and you're probably wondering why Holbein isn't here. Watch my Holbein video and then that'll let you know why. They're too expensive, especially now they're even worse. Not worth the money just to buy the pastel set, because it's a pastel set. It's just for fun. So I'd love to know what your favorite pastel pencil sets are in the comments below. And until next time, take care. Bye now.